Okay, so I've just had a phone call from somebody who has rung us up looking at relocation PA managing their HMO. And one of the things they are asking about is licensing of their property. And it sort of got me thinking that we get this question a lot when landlords ring us up or people talk to us about, does my property need licensing? Do I need planning permission? What do I need to put into it if it needs licensing? And lots of sort of questions like that. And it got me thinking that I thought I'd explain it a bit, because actually there's a really popular misconception that all shared accommodation needs licensing and therefore needs lots of high regulations, which is it's not really true, but I'll explain why in a minute. So the first thing you've got to work out really is your property that you own or are looking to buy going to need or does need a license? Because if it does, then it changes what you need to do in terms of fire regulations. If it doesn't, then it can be slightly more lenient. However, as I'll explain in a minute, this is changing, and I think also landlords need to be aware of the ethical, moral obligations of putting the right fire precautions in anyway, even if technically it doesn't need licensing. So I think the first thing, there's a sort of litmus test way of working out if your property needs licensing, and that is if your property has 5 or more people in it, over 3 or more floors, with 1 shared kitchen, then your property will need licensing. And all licensing means is that your property is put onto a local authority register and it can be subject to inspections, and all they need to do is come out and there's a slightly more stringent fire regs that need to go into it, and all that happens is the local authority officer will just come out and check that you're up to scratch. This is because the properties that, if you've got 3 or more floors with 5 or more people in it, these are usually much larger properties, meaning if there was a fire, then it can be harder to get out, and just means that's why the regulations have to be a little bit sort of stricter, just in case. Whereas there's much smaller properties, then it can be easier to get out. So you could jump out of a 2nd floor window, you can't jump out of a 3rd floor window. Okay, so properties that need licensing. Planning, I think, is something that people also get mixed up with properties that need licensing. I think, but let's just get back. The first thing to think about is, okay, so let's just explain this 5 or more people over 3 or more floors, actually, because that sounds really easy, but actually it can be a little more complicated. So let's say, for example, there were 4 people living in a property, and it was only a 2-story property. Then that property doesn't need licensing. And I sort of didn't mention that every one of those 3 bits of criteria need to be met. So there has to be, if there were 3, as I was saying, say 3, 2 stories, but there were 6 people in it, well, actually, that in theory doesn't need licensing because it doesn't meet the 3 or more floors. So if there were 10 people in there over 2 floors, in theory it doesn't need licensing because it doesn't meet every one of the criteria. If there were 2 people over 4 floors, then again, in theory, it doesn't need licensing. Obviously, we've got to look at it realistically and think, actually, well, if it was 4 floors and 2 people, it's probably going to need license anyway. I know that in Hereford, where we are, actually anything over 3 floors needs doesn't need a license, but needs the regulations put in anyway. So all a license actually is just a piece of paper. So that's the first thing to say. So if your property is 3 or more floors and you have 5 or more people living in it and they share a kitchen, then you are going to need to apply to council for license. And all this it requires is you going to the license, to the local council, and filling in a form, filling all the application, paying a fee, which varies from council to council as well. And especially if you're members of sort of landlord associations and stuff, then you can get discounts on it. And then they'll come out, do an inspection, sign it off, and happy for the next 5 years. And you just have to do it every 5 years. So that's the first thing. So make sure, think if your property has 5 or more people with 3 or more floors with 1 shared kitchen, then you are going to be subject to a license. All that license means is that you are going to have to put in certain set fire regulations by your council. So these typically are an LDT fire alarm system, which is interlinked, and basically all this is a sort of hardwired smoke alarm system in every room, in every communal room, cellar, attic, which are all interlinked. So if one goes off, they all go off, and it has a panel, and it's just a little bit. It's a commercial fire system. And then you'll be required to put fire doors on every door and high-risk rooms, every bedroom, high-risk rooms, so bedrooms, kitchens, dining rooms, And then you'd also need to put in emergency lighting. So this is going to be on exits and so back door, front door, hallways, and also sort of stairways. So, and just obviously that just means if there's a power cut, because obviously it's fire, then people can still see the way up. So if there's a power goes out, then they can see where the exits, so they can go downstairs and where the exits are. So those are the three sort of most basic things that would need to happen. And there are a few little ones around that which we're going to cover in future videos, but I just wanted to touch on the three main ones. So if your property is subject to a licence, then you will need to make sure you have an LD2 fire alarm system and you've got fire doors on all your doors in high risk rooms. You have emergency lighting, and also you've got a 30-minute fire protection, which is something I sort of going to touch on. All the 30-minute fire protection, all that means is that there's a half an hour break between a high risk room and the stairway, or an escape route. So, which is usually the staircase. So if you had a staircase that came straight into a dining room, there was no door between the dining room and the kitchen, then that's going straight into a high risk room. So if there was a fire, they'd have to come through a high risk room to get out, which so you need to build a 30-minute fire escape route out of that, so they wouldn't come through the high risk room. You know, this is just either a fire door. So a better example would be if there was a door, so there was a 30-minute fire door between the staircase and then the dining room and the kitchen, then you'd be all right. So you would have your 30-minute fire protection there. Or if there was just in a corridor, you could build a stud one out of plastic, fire retardant plasterboard. So again, that's half an hour protection. So as long as you had that, then that would be all right. So those are really the four key things you've got to think about licensing. I think we'll touch on planning in a future video because we're going on a bit here. I'm trying to keep these videos as short as possible. So, but just think, and as I said, if your property's not subject to a license, it doesn't mean you shouldn't put these regulations in. It just means you don't necessarily have to. You might actually have to, but you might not have to apply and pay your fee, and then pay your fee every 5 years to be on a license, like to be on a register. So just think about it. If your property is over 3 floors and does have 5 or more people in it and they share a kitchen, then you're going to have to apply to the council for a license. So I just hope that was a bit of an insight into licensing. It is complex, and I was explaining it, but just the last thing I'm going to leave you with, the thing you've got to think about is you need to leave planning very separate from licensing. So licensing is completely separate from planning. So check that if you are licensable, you've got a license, and you've got the right regulations in it. You actually don't have to have it through yet. As long as you've applied for it and paid your money, that's okay. But make sure you've got the right regulations in there. So LD2 fire alarm system, fire doors, emergency lighting, and a 30-minute fire escape, sort of escape route, and then you'll be right. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, queries, let me know, and I'd love to help. So thanks very much.